Good afternoon, all you beautiful HASP people. I'm so glad that you're here. And I've had this little cartoon for a while, and I asked Glenn about it, and it's a pickles, and I'm going to put it up here, but I'm going to read it to you. If you're aware of the pickles cartoon. So for me, this works well about listening. So Pickles is saying to his friend, they say being a good listener is one of the most important skills you can have. And then Pickle keeps going and he says, what about you, Clyde? Are you a good listener? And Clyde says, yes, I think I'm a pretty good listener. And Pickles responds to him, yeah, me neither. I think that just sort of encapsulates how some of us think we listen. So Glenn is here to give us all kinds of skills to help us be better listeners. Glenn is a retired social worker and educator. He is a graduate of Hope College and the U of M School of Social Work. He has been engaged in urban ministry in Grand Rapids for many years, as well as internationally in South Korea and Botswana. He worked with students at Western Theological Seminary in the formation office for 15 years before retiring in 2020. So we are so fortunate to have him. He has a lot of experience. He has a lot of ideas of what he wants to talk about today. And if we could all just welcome Glenn Swear, and we are so happy to have him. Thank you, Glenn.
Right. Thank you, Jane. So I hope your disappointment is too great. Some of you may have been expecting Ann McKnight, who I think was on the initial, well, I know was on the initial roster. And she called me several weeks ago saying, Glenn, I'm double booked. Can you help? And I said, I think so. I'm open that date. And so I count Ann McKnight a valuable colleague and mentor and friend. Hopefully you'll have a chance to connect with her at some other point. But I'm happy to channel her today. So my working title for our time together is Listening for Life. Listening for Life. So my plan is to offer some introductory comments about listening, just to set the stage. Then I want to introduce you to, or reintroduce you if you're already familiar with, a helpful tool called nonviolent communication. Just for my information, anybody exposed or familiar with nonviolent communication? Maybe, yeah, I see Sharon. There are a couple of names and faces I recognize, including Sharon. Most of you not so much, so that's great. So I think NVC is a real helpful tool for listening for life. And since NVC, the shorthand version of nonviolent communication, is best learned by practice, we're going to spend a significant amount of time in our 90-minute session practicing in smaller groups and then giving some feedback to each other. So this will not be a traditional lecture where I'll just speak for 80 minutes and then we'll have some short Q&A. So I hope you're open to that and will participate as comfortably as you can. By 2:30, the end of our time, that's when we end, right, Jane, 2:30?
I just muted myself. Yes, we end at 2:30.
Right. I hope everyone is at least a little more familiar with nonviolent communication, and that each of us has a little greater capacity to listen for life, both within ourselves and within others that we're connected to, personally or professionally. In the course description that you had, that originally came from Anne, was the word presence. The importance of being fully present when we're trying to listen to others or be with other people. It's kind of I've always, well, for at least for a long time, was kind of struggled with, well, what does it mean to be present? I want to read you a Martin Buber quote, and then we'll talk a little bit more about presence. He writes, in spite of all similarities, every living situation has, like a newborn child, a new face that has never been before and will never come again. It demands of you, of each of us, a reaction that cannot be prepared beforehand. It demands nothing of what is past. It demands presence, responsibility. It demands you or me. I think maybe the best way to get at presence for me is to talk about its opposite, or what it's not. I think we're probably all familiar with what it means to be distracted in our lives. There's a lot going on, whether it's jobs or family or hobbies or whatever it might be. Most of us have plenty on the plate that we're concerned about, and some things that are pleasant and comfortable and other things that are real troubling. And at any moment, we may be kind of distracted by those things. Our mind is not fully present, and our heart and body is not fully present in wherever we are in the moment. Well, the opposite then of distraction is being more present to what is happening right now. What is my reality right now? What is my body feeling like? What is my heart feeling like? What are my emotions? What is important to me right now? What are my values? What NVC will come to know calls needs. What are my needs right now, or my longings? Right now, not tomorrow, not yesterday, but right now. So this presence is something we try to cultivate, that we only have this moment, right? We're not guaranteed tomorrow, and yesterday is over, but we're present right now in this class, and that's all we know. In terms of listening for life, I think you're probably getting the sense that this is about relationships. It's not about listening to a lecture on Zoom. It's not about listening to music. It's not about listening to a television show or whatever else we might listen to kind of remotely. But I'm talking about listening in the context of relationships. And I'm assuming that because we're here today wanting to learn something about listening, that it's important for us to connect with other people. If it's not important, if we don't want to connect with people, well, listening is really a useless skill. We could just be silent, or we can talk the rest of our lives. But if we do want to practice listening because relationships are important to us, then that's where we are in terms of how to improve those relationships, how to connect with other people more deeply. And I think from NVC's point of view, nonviolent perspective, we're trying to create more compassion within ourselves and within the world around us. This kind of presence that I'm talking about, sort of living in the moment, I guess is another phrase, often doesn't come easily because of distractions I've already talked about, or in many conversations, particularly in our kind of charged political climate, we're often thinking in conversations about how we're going to respond, what we're going to say in response to what somebody says, whether we agree with them or not. Most of us want to be right. We want to sound smart. We want to sound intelligent. We want to know what we're talking about. And so we're trying to impress other people with that image, I think. We value truth, and we want to believe that we're truthful, and we think it's important to be clear and concise and persuasive. That's all true if we're talking about truth as proposition, as a rational experience. We want to, we don't want to talk falsehood. We want to be true. We want to back up what we say. But if we're listening largely to hone our arguments in response to a conversation, then that's a whole different experience than what we're talking about today. That's not going to lead us to connection with others or compassion for them. That's a different kind of conversation, I guess. Parker Palmer, many of you are familiar with the writer Parker Palmer, writes not only about truth as proposition, but truth as relational. That there is a grounded truth in how we relate to each other as friends, as enemies, as family members, as neighbors, so on. That kind of relational truth for our lives requires that we be more present to our feelings, our emotions, and the needs of other people we're relating to, and also our own feelings and needs. We bring those into every situation with other people. Being articulate about those feelings and needs, however, is pretty challenging for many of us. We've grown up in this larger cultural environment where the emphasis is on thinking well and rationality. And many of our families, particularly in the West Michigan subculture, more particularly the Dutch West Michigan subculture, families have not been very helpful in helping us learn how to express our own feelings, emotions, and needs, and to take responsibility for them. So we, many of us anyway, if you're anything like me, it's a bit of an uphill learning curve. So I want to propose nonviolent communication, NVC, as a helpful tool or a method in this business of what I'm calling listening for life. I was first introduced to NVC, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 years ago, and it was by none other than Ann McKnight. If you don't know Ann, she's a local therapist there in Holland and does a lot of work with not only your individual practice of therapy, but work with people around nonviolent communication and particularly restorative circles as a conflict management tool. Anyway, Ann introduced me to it many years ago, and later my colleagues and I at Western Seminary in the formation office adopted NVC as a teaching tool, and we began teaching all seminarians how to understand NVC and to use it weekly in small groups that we'd formed. The feedback from those students and eventually graduates was that NVC was very valuable, helpful to them in handling the challenges of leadership in various ministry contexts. And I've certainly found that true in my own life as well. So I will testify to it, and hence I think I see the value in sharing some of that with you today. Okay, well, let's Susan, if you're ready, she's gonna cue up a little 5-minute intro video, an animated video, just to give an overview of NVC. We'll watch that. You'll watch that on your screen, and then we'll move on from there.
Okay, well, it is my hope that right now you're on the left-hand side of your screen seeing something that says the big idea. Can I get a thumbs up on that? Y'all seeing that? Okay. I'm going to press play, and if you hear sound, I'd also like a thumbs up, and then I will go off camera.
Idea comes from Marshall Rosenberg and his pioneering book, Nonviolent Communication. As always, we hope we can inspire you, help you grow your mind, and motivate you to be the best you. In the book, a better way of communicating with others. He calls it nonviolent communication, a language of life. Communication is a fundamental building block of everyday life. If we want to function well in society, we need to learn to communicate effectively with the people surrounding us. Often, when we communicate with others, irrational conflicts and misunderstandings arise, and we end up leaving conversations feeling disregarded or in despair. This is where nonviolent communication enters the stage. At its core is the belief that all human beings have the capacity for compassion and empathy. We only resort to harmful behavior when we don't identify more effective strategies. The purpose of nonviolent communication is to help us connect with ourselves and others in a way that makes compassionate given natural. It is not about convincing people to do what we want, but to create a connection with another person where everyone's needs are met. Nonviolent communication is a way to resolve differences peacefully. It is all about empathetical listening and honest expressing. It teaches us to understand and express our feelings and to hear our own deeper needs and those of others. It evolves around two fundamental questions. Number one, what is alive in you? Or put another way, what are you feeling? Number two, what would make your life more wonderful? Meaning, what unfulfilled needs do you have that I can help you meet? It seems straightforward, but expressing emotions and needs is not easy. Many of us have never learned to acknowledge our own feelings. We have grown up being told things like, boys aren't scared, or girls shouldn't get angry. And as a result, many people hide how they actually feel, even from themselves. Nonviolent communication helps us to communicate our feelings clearly. Nonviolent communication distinguishes between real expression of emotions and statements which are in fact descriptions of what we are thinking, not what we are feeling. Let us give you a couple of examples where people think they are expressing a feeling, when in fact they are expressing an opinion, a criticism, or a moral judgment. Number one, when I feel is followed by that, like, or as if. For example, I feel like you should know better. Number two, when I feel is used together with pronouns. For example, I feel I am constantly working. Number three, when I feel is used with names or nouns. For example, referring to people, I feel Amy has acted irresponsibly. None of these statements is actually letting the other person know what you are feeling. Instead, you should simply name the emotion you are feeling without any judgment. For example, I feel sad because, or I feel angry since, and so on. Expressing our feelings clearly is very important, but we need to also express the need behind the feeling by making a clear request of what we want from the other person. Judgments, criticisms, and interpretations of others are all estranged expressions of our needs. And when we use them, we imply that the person in front of us is behaving wrongly, when in fact we all know is that the person isn't acting according to our beliefs and values. If someone says, "You never listen to me," it is them telling you that their need to be heard is not being met. But because the statement is made as a judgment, the recipient is likely to hear criticism. And criticism often leads to self-defense and counterattacking instead of understanding. The more directly we can connect our feelings and our needs, the easier it is for others to respond compassionately. So, focus on your own needs instead of on what is wrong with others. Imagine an interaction between two colleagues, Alan and Bart. They have a meeting scheduled for 1 p.m. Alan arrives to the meeting on time. Bart, however, doesn't arrive until 1:15
There's usually a
p.m.,
little
leaving Alan
line of
frustrated.
all little
As soon
tiny
as Bart enters the
icons
room,
along
Alan
here.
blurts out, "It is really annoying that you are always late for meetings. You are an irresponsible person." If Alan was familiar with nonviolent communication, the conversation could go like this instead. "I feel angry because you are late. I would like to start the meeting on time, since it will otherwise disrupt my calendar for the rest of the day. Can I please ask you to be on time for our next meeting?" Nonviolent communication also teaches us that we cannot be responsible for each other's feelings, but we can be responsible for how we choose to react. Let's end the video with a tip on how to best express our needs. Instead of expressing our needs with a kick-me attitude that implies that they are a burden, Rosenberg suggests that we use a Santa Claus attitude, showing the world that our needs are a precious gift. We hope you have enjoyed this video on Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication. Please remember to give the video a like, and please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support is our happiness. Take care, and we will see you soon.
Okay, are we all back online?
Flawless, Susan. Thank you very much.
Good.
Technology is helpful when it works.
Yeah.
All right, hopefully everybody was able to take that in. As a brief overview of nonviolent communication. Hopefully, well, I'm not sure what you think or believe, but I believe and think that each of us on any given day and any given moment, we're doing the best we can. Where none of us is perfect, and in terms of communication, yeah, sometimes we don't connect, sometimes we do, but at any given moment, we're doing the best we can. At the same time, this is also true, I believe, that we can learn to do something differently. We can learn new things about communication so that we can connect more in a better way, in a more compassionate way. So I hope that within an hour's time, you'll agree with me. We're gonna jump right into a first little practice before Susan does that, divides us into groups of 3. I would just say that you're going to need a couple of things for this small group experience. One, it's helpful if you can pull out, if you have a hard copy with you, great. If not, to find it on the screen. I believe it's posted in the chat where Susan put it. But I'd like you to be able to look at the list of feelings or emotions. The top of the page says feelings/emotions. This first exercise, each of us is going to get 3 minutes to talk about an emotion or a feeling that we're familiar with. Most emotions fall into 2 general categories. Ones that we're comfortable with, where we feel comfortable feeling these emotions, or the other side where, ooh, this is uncomfortable to feel this. I don't like it. So either comfortable or uncomfortable. That's a long list, but basically it can be distilled into those 2 general categories. So I'm asking you to pick one of these that you're familiar with, that you feel a lot. Maybe it's a comfortable feeling, maybe it's not. And you'll be invited then, or I'm inviting you now, when we break into the smaller groups, to talk about what it's like to feel that feeling. When do you feel it? And where does it sit in your body? Is it in your arms, in your chest, in your neck? Where is it? Does it make you feel tight, or does it relax you? And what's happening when you have this emotion? What's going on? So you see, the other piece of information then, beyond the feelings, emotions list, is the one entitled Instructions for Small Group Practices. The number 1 on that is, I know this emotion, and it basically runs through the steps of what I'd like you to do in your small groups. So 1 person talks at a time. The other 2 people are completely silent, attentive, of course. I mean, even though we're not physically present with each other, just give your attention to the speaker. And then when 3 minutes are up, then the next person talks about the emotion that they've chosen. Any questions to clarify what I'm asking you to do?
I cannot find the list.
Okay. Can you look in, do you know how to access chat on your page, on your screen?
Yes, and there's nothing in the chat.
Oh,
You should see 3 icons in your chat at the very bottom of the page.
But, okay, mine are on the top, but that's okay. Disconnect audio, minimize meeting settings and chat,
So
and
if you,
raise hand. I
Yes.
don't have.
if you could click on the chat button, what it'll do is it'll pull up a screen on the right-hand side of your Zoom screen, and it's going to be white. And at the bottom of it, you should see some icons. One says feelings inventory, one says needs, and the other says HASP small group exercises. And what I'd like to do is go ahead and send everybody to their groups. And once you are in the group, the other 2 people should be able to help you. And I will actually try to enter your group and make sure that you have the instructions.
I don't have it as an option. I have only the classroom with nothing on it.
okay.
This is an old iPad.
Right. If you can't access any of the sheet,
Okay.
that's fine. I'm guessing that you can think of some emotion that you're familiar with, whatever it might be, whether it's happiness or anger, and you'll be able to talk about it. So see you all in about 10 minutes.
Yes, give me 1 second. I need to
Okay.
stop sharing a screen.
So remember, 3 minutes each of you, while the other 2 listen. And then we'll come back together.
Okay, so everyone, I'm going to press the button. It's going to say open all rooms, and you are going to see a message on your screen as to whether you want to enter a breakout room. Press yes. Every 3 minutes, I will send a message to the chat just reminding you to switch speakers, and you will automatically be brought back in 9 minutes. See you later.
Do you want me to join a breakout room, Susan?
Yeah, I want to see, let's let everybody go away real quickly first.
Because I get the invitation as well. I'm happy to do that if we
Yeah,
need
I
to.
think if you're familiar with how to do that. So I see Kathleen's iPad is still here. If you can accept the breakout room, Donna, and then Michael Curtin, if yep, there you go. So it looks like, hey, Judy Giddings, if you're there, can you press accept breakout room? Hey, Michael, can you unmute yourself? Glenn, are you able to move from room to room? You're currently muted.
I was just in room 4 and no
Okay.
one else was there, so I came back to you just to see how else I might be helpful.
Okay, room 4 has me in it.
Okay.
So go ahead and go into room 5. There's actually 4 people in it. I'm not, but go into room 5 and see what happens.
So I'm not sure if I can do that. I don't see. Oh, there's breakout rooms. It just gives me 4 as the option. So
Okay, then why don't you stick with me? I think
Yep.
people, there's usually one in every group that will be able to lead this. It looks like we have a couple people that maybe stepped away from their computers.
All right.
Donna, if you're there and you can unmute yourself, if you need further instructions, I can provide those for you. And Michael, do you have a message on your screen asking you to join a group?
No, as a matter of fact, what's happened, I don't know how this has happened, but I started searching for some of this stuff. And now I have you alone in the virtual classroom. I have then several selections, but none of it is pertinent. I have half virtual classroom is inviting you to join room 9. I can write.
That's, so you should press yes. There he goes. Hey, Bill, can you unmute yourself? Let me see if you're having a problem.
I was with Bill B, and his phone was just fading in and out. You couldn't understand him at all. I think he could hear me. So we thought if we logged off and logged back on, it might be helpful. So
Sure.
can you put me back in the room with him?
Okay, and it was Bill B.
Yes. So there's two Bill B's in the room.
You know what? It's funny because yes, okay, Bill B isn't back yet. So why don't I put you in? There we go. Here he is.
Okay.
You know what? We're together, Bill B and Bill B. Why don't the four of us right now, Glenn?
Yep.
Would that be okay if we just conducted a group?
Sure.
Why don't you lead? I'm going to stay quiet and see if I can manage this.
Yeah, okay, great. Thanks, Susan.
Yeah, we were getting this echo.
All right.
I was speaking. We couldn't figure out why that was happening. So,
All right. Well, I think we're back in business. So
okay.
if Bill, had you started talking about the emotion you're familiar with?
No, we're still trying. The emotion will be the frustration because we had our technical problem.
Right. Well, you want to say some more about that?
Yeah, it was like I was like all ready to go and interested in the topic, and I even had some things in mind to talk about, and then we got sidetracked by this, crazy echo, and that's what we had to focus on, and it was just kind of a frustrating thing, and then Bill said to. Well, let's log out, which made sense to me. But then I was thinking, okay, we're gonna log out, then I'm probably not gonna be able to get back in again.
Yeah. Well, so when you're in the midst of that kind of frustration, what does it feel like in your body?
Well, it was like a tenseness and a tightness, mostly in my gut, and I was just kind of frustrated and angry too, because I'm thinking. I'm not sure why I was frustrated and angry, except I was being thwarted from getting into the exercise, which sounded interesting,
Oh, right.
So yeah, in the body, mostly just a tenseness in my gut, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bill, the other Bill B.
Yes.
What emotion have you chosen? What are you familiar with?
My wife and I, well, she's late 60s, I'm early 70s, and we just feel grateful and appreciative. There's almost nothing that we think, okay, what more do we want? What are we lacking? And there's really nothing, you could say some things like, sure, I'd love to have, the body of a 24-year-old again. But aside from things like that, and she's got a few health issues, but aside from that, we're just so grateful and thankful that we have a great relationship with our kids, with our grandkids. Life seems to be just good and never without problems, but it just feels good to be grateful. And that's just sort of a feeling like, yeah, internally in my heart, I guess, I don't know, just feeling grateful. And great thing about being appreciative of it sort of feeds on itself. The more you appreciate, the more you're grateful, How about you, Glenn?
Thank you. Yeah, I think the one I comes to mind now is anxiousness whenever I'm presenting in a situation like that, particularly when it's new people and there's technology involved. I feel the level of anxiety rising as I prepare, and usually it goes away as soon as we get underway, but certainly I felt that this morning and up until a few minutes after 1 o'clock. I was tight. I had to run to the bathroom and I urinate often, to be blunt. My hands get cold and, my body wants to move because I'm not very relaxed. And so, yeah, it's not the only time anxiety crops up in my life, but certainly in preparation for presentations like this. And other times it may be when I have expectations that things go a certain way, whether it's with my wife or right now we have one of our sons who lives in Brooklyn, New York with his wife and our 2-year-old grandson. They're in the house. And so, yeah, I can feel anxiety rise sometimes when things seem a little bit confusing and disorganized and so on. So, yeah, it's a emotion I'm familiar with.
Once you get into your presentation and things seem to be going along okay, does the body sensations begin to be somewhat relieved and
Yeah,
easy?
I haven't had to run to the bathroom and my hands are warm. So,
That's great.
Yes.
yeah, so I imagine soon we're going to be asked to come back, but anything either of you would like to add to your kind of knowledge of your own emotion?
What other kind of if we have time, Bill, when you say you feel grateful, what kind of emotion accompany that? Just like relaxation or appreciation or
Yeah, appreciation, relaxation, being able to see things as a gift of God and recognize little serendipities that happen. Often my wife has to point me out to a new flower that's blooming in our garden because I'll just walk right by. And so I find out myself observing those kind of things a little better. And it just sort of is it's the opposite of a vicious circle, but the same idea. That the more you appreciate, the more you're thankful. The more you're thankful, the more you appreciate. So,
Bill, just to let you know, there's people that are coming back in the classroom, and I want to make sure that that you're aware of that.
We better keep our secrets, Bill and Bill.
Yeah,
I think that what you said is a great message for all, but I can't make an assumption that that's what you think as well. But it looks like people are coming back in. I'm hoping that this continues.
Yeah, well, maybe make a quick assessment, Susan, if this worked well enough to do it again. I don't want people to get lost in the shuffle.
I would be happy to go with Bill B again because I think he solved his mic problem.
yes,
Maybe logged in on a new computer because I know your name is different.
No. Yeah, well, the plan would be just to make it easier on Susan is to return to the same groups when it's time. So.
Yeah.
And if the technology will let me do that, which I think it will, I'm looking at the breakout setup and it looks as though it will allow you to go back into the same groups. So yeah, Glenn, why don't you go ahead and re-ask that question, maybe get some feedback to see if people were able to navigate, and then you can determine whether you would like me to do that again.
Okay, so welcome back. My plan was to do this a couple of other times for 2 other short exercises, but I want to just check in to make sure everybody ended up in a group, and as rough as it might have been to get going, that everybody actually did end up in a group. So if you didn't, please unmute yourself and just let me and Susan know.
I'm going to say, Glenn, that my group worked out really well, except I think we struggled with exactly what we were trying to do as far as meeting your expectations,
Yeah.
but we couldn't really follow. I think maybe we need a little more clarification of
Okay.
when we're in the group, what each one of us should be doing.
Yeah, all right. Okay, I'll go through it again. We'll try it again. It sounds, anybody else have a helpful comment? Yes.
Yes, there were only 2 of us, and we thought there were going to be 3, and so we waited for someone else to come into the group. And then we proceeded, and of course, then we did have extra time, and weren't quite sure how to, we were being polite with each other not to go over 3 minutes. And so it would just, if we knew that we had how many people are really supposed to be in the group.
Right, right.
But
Yeah,
it worked. But it did work. It was
Yeah.
fine with us. Yeah. I paired with Andre. Mhm.
okay.
Right.
All right.
Ours,
So we probably don't have a number that's divisible by 3 and hence, get a group of 2, and that's okay.
we
It was fine.
we did very well, the 3 of us. We did number 1 on the instructions for small group, and each person had just about the right amount of time to talk.
Great.
It
Okay,
was,
that's good to hear. Any other comments about it didn't work for you? All right. Well, then.
I'd say,
let's do-
Craig, the only thing is, not having the form, I didn't know where the form is or whatever.
Right.
So our kind of moderator, Jane, was the one that explained what she had in our group. So, we didn't have anything to reference,
Yeah,
other than what she told
okay.
us.
All right.
We were totally unsuccessful. 2 of us got it. And also catastrophe happened outside my window. They started to do the lawn.
Oh, okay.
And the other thing, I didn't have the directions. So it was as unsuccessful as, the only way it could have been worse is only 1 person showed up.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
I
Well,
found
okay.
I found that I was looking at the instructions and the list of emotions, which in a way interfered with my listening. So it was an exercise in listening, but I was distracted.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Okay. Thanks for that. Well, let's keep practicing. Thanks for your feedback. And
I have one thing to say. I was in Jane's group and I didn't know when to speak up
okay.
because she was explaining her situation.
Well, maybe if we may not be able to rely on an external prompt after 3 minutes. So if one of the 3 of you or 2 or 4, however many are in your group, if one of you would keep time with your phone or wristwatch, that might be helpful just to make sure everybody has a chance to speak. Okay, I'd like to move on. So emotions or feelings are important, obviously, in NVC. Really, the heart of NVC is talking about needs, and needs not defined as deficiencies, but needs defined as longings or values. Needs are universal and they serve life. They help us experience and enjoy and live life more fully. So don't think of needs as a negative thing, but more as what really moves your heart and your being toward life. So I'd like to do another little exercise called the beauty of needs. And NVC is always about what are my needs in a given moment? Are they being met or are they not being met? And if I'm listening to someone else, I'm listening for needs within that person too. What is beyond what the person is saying? What what are his or her underlying values or longings or needs. So this little exercise is called the beauty of needs. It's number 2 if you have access to the list, the instruction list. And at this time, I'm going to pick, you don't have to look at the needs list, the other listing of that accompanied the feelings, emotions one. I'm going to give you the need or longing that I'd like you to talk about. And all of us are going to talk about the same one. That is to matter and belong. So it's a universal, assumption is it's a universal need that all of us, each one of us, every one of us wants to matter and to belong. So in your small group, you're going to respond again, 3 minutes per person, more or less, depending on how many people you have, to the questions like, well, what is it like if this need is met for you at a given time, that you feel like you matter and belong, that experience is happening? What's going on? What helps you matter and belong, in other words? What emotions are connected to when those needs are being met, when you feel like you matter and belong, or when you know you do? What might you be feeling like? What might you be doing that helps you reach this kind of level of your need being met? And if you get to it, what is it like when this need is not met in your life? When you feel like you don't matter and belong? What is that like? What is your experience like? So basically, what's the experience like to matter and belong? What does that feel like? What are you doing? And then if you want to get to the opposite, what is it like what is your experience when you feel like you don't matter and you don't belong? Take turns listening to each other, and then we'll regather in about 9 minutes.
Okay, folks. So I've taken your feedback and done the best that I can to maybe move people around. Not very many. You should be in the same group, but there's a couple people that had devices that weren't working. So I tried to pair them with people that did. If your device doesn't allow you to speak, just take the time to listen. And then I am sending messages out in chat every 3 minutes indicating it's time to switch. So maybe keep an eye on that or just watch your watch. So as of, let me check that. I'm going to open all rooms and you should receive that message again. And best of luck, and hopefully we'll sort through this. Thanks for your bravery through this technology. Lewis Kenny, you're on with me, and I know that you can't, weren't able to contribute. I saw that message because your phone won't allow you to. And I don't think, Glenn, just so you know, I think that Donna and the one that says 777 and Phyllis are not participating. So would maybe you and I don't know how we could contribute to Lewis's experience other than I could assign him to another breakout room so he could listen. You're muted.
If any of these folks on the screen I could connect with, and as I couldn't find my way to the 2 bills where I was last time, so I'm happy to, they'll do fine without me if you want me to try to connect with Phyllis and Louise and Donna.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Louise. I'm looking at too many things at the same time. I don't think Phyllis and Donna are participating.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead, Louise, I'm gonna move you into room 9. No.
Which is the one, you want to move both of us into where the two bills are? I don't know what number that is.
Yeah, I moved them. I paired them with some other people.
Okay,
But,
okay.
room 6, let me move you into room 6. I'll see you soon.
Louise, you're talking about?
Yeah, I already moved her.
Okay, great.
She's not, Louise, go ahead and accept the invitation on your screen if you can. So Glenn, do you have a notification on your screen?
No.
Think much different right now. Whether you feel good or you don't feel good, that's the way it is. And how to remedy that at my age, I don't know.
Can you hear me now?
Hi, Kathy.
Yeah, I can.
Let me go ahead and put you in a group so you can be an observer. They'll kind of explain to you what they're doing, or you could probably pick up from context. Are you comfortable with me doing that?
I'd be happy
Yeah.
to work with her too.
But can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay.
Should I?
I switched from my iPad to my computer.
Okay.
Okay. Glenn and I will work through this exercise. Go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah. So Kathy, I don't know if you heard the instructions.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So we're
So
talking.
I'll just listen. I'll just listen
uh,
until I have something to say. Go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. So we're talking about this universal need to matter and to belong. And when that need is met in our lives, what is that like? What's the experience? What's happening? What do I feel like? What's my body like? I can respond to that, but I'd invite Susan or you, Kathy, to do that as well, if either of you is comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Kathy, would you like to go ahead, or I'd be happy to?
Go ahead, Susan. I'm
Okay,
kind of discombobulated here.
Yeah, and we're getting some feedback. Sorry, there's some technical difficulties. I don't know where it's coming from, but I would say that that feeling for me would feel like peace, a calmness, and it's a feeling that that I don't know that I've had very often. So I hope I'm answering the question. I'm trying to pull back my longing would be to have kind of that feeling of peace.
Mm-hmm.
Glenn, is that?
Yeah, you're on the right track. You're great. Yeah, so can you think of a time when you had the experience of mattering and belonging?
Yes, I actually think that, I mean, my strongest memory of mattering and belonging and really having kind of that feeling of peace would be as more my childhood. So I think that as an adult, my feeling has been more in seeking to feel belonging and mattering, but never quite had that full peace that I think that as an innocent child, you hopefully, I mean, and I felt like I did, just kind of felt like I belonged and mattered. And I think it's as we grow up, kind of start questioning that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy, can I ask you to talk about that need or longing in your life to matter and to belong?
It's always there. And most of the time I think I feel secure enough that I don't actually think about it until maybe later. And then I'll think, did I really belong in that group? Did I say anything that was useful? Did I say anything that was helpful? Did I really, was I really a useful participant?
Mm-hmm.
Or I sometimes feel like I'm in groups where people are smarter than me. And I'll say that, you know, I'm just going to listen and I'll take notes because you're smarter than me. And once I say it, then it's fine.
Yeah. So might you, in that case, be feeling a little anxious about not measuring up, not being as smart? As you-
Intimidated.
Intimidated, no.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I said it might be afterwards, might be ahead of time too.
No.
Once I'm in the position, I'll just move forward and do the best I can. And you can't change it at that point.
Right,
So the intimidation would be before the event.
right, right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's helpful that you observe that in yourself. You're aware of it, and you can move through it. Huh.
Maybe I should avoid the people that intimidate me.
Well,
I don't. That could be a solution.
yeah. Yeah, so the question is not so much about mattering and belonging maybe, but intimidation is what other people might do to us, but it's not actually an emotion. So
right, I saw that.
Yeah, what emotion might you be actually feeling
right,
when you think about being intimidated? Is it fear? Is it insecurity? Is it?
No, I think it's that I'm I might not measure up to what I want people to think of me.
Yeah.
I might say something stupid
Yeah.
that doesn't really fit, or it isn't something that is intellectually appropriate at that time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think stupid may not be on the list, but I think we know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Mhm.
Yeah. So is there a time when, do you then end up feeling, experiencing mattering and belonging once you get over the initial jitters, or does it? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, because I have been known, and I very recently prayed before I went to something, don't let me say anything stupid, because it was an important connection that I wanted to go well. And so that was my actual prayer. Then when I was actually in it, I didn't feel concern. I did go home and write down a lot of notes, including what I said and what the other people said, thinking it over.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I do too, is I'll write things down and then look at them and think about them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure why, maybe hoping to improve it the next time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great exercise. I just wanted to let you know that we do have people coming back into the room.
All right. Okay. That's good. Has it been 9 minutes already?
It has.
All right.
And I think that what will happen is people get a 60-second warning, and here they all come.
Yeah. All right.
So it looks like we have many people back. I had the privilege of being in a room with Kathy and Glenn, and a few other people who I think might have stepped away, but it worked well for us. And I will turn it back over to Glenn.
Okay. All right. Hopefully that was a little smoother for most of you, all of you. Yeah. Okay. All right. Want to move on to, it's already after 2 o'clock. Amazing. Understanding and using empathy as we listen to each other. I think I would, in the NVC world, I think we define empathy as a respectful understanding of the other person's experience. So a respectful understanding of the other person's experience. What's not, there are a number of things that are not empathetic that I think we're probably familiar with. We're going to practice giving empathy guesses in just a minute, but just so we're on the same page, advising and fixing a situation that somebody else is talking about is not empathy. I think you should do this. I did it and it worked for me. That's not a respectful understanding of the other person's experience, is it? Or educating. This could turn into a positive experience for you if only you did this. Or sympathizing. I think this is a common one. Oh, you poor thing. You know, I feel so sorry for you. I'm sorry this happened. It's kind of a half-hearted attempt to be empathetic, but it isn't really helping the other person understand their experience. Or I think some of us are really good at interrogating. Oh, when did this happen? What time was it? Who else was involved? We're gathering information when the intent is to more fully understand the other person's experience, and information is not the important thing at that point. Spiritualizing. Many of us might say, oh, well, that's maybe what God intended, or you should pray about that more fully. Those may be helpful things to say at some point, but not when we're attempting to respectfully understand the other person's experience and provide empathy, which is the important thing in that moment. So we're getting better at it. So I'd like to try another time in small groups, but first I've paid Jane big money to do a little demonstration with me, and I'm wondering if Jane's ready to do what we talked about. Jane, can you unmute, please?
I can.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're a little weak, but.
Yeah, I was told in my last group that nobody could hear me. I don't know how to fix this.
You're better now. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I prompted Jane in a phone conversation a couple days ago to help me demonstrate what it is that I'd like you to do in your small groups. And so Jane was going to come up with an interaction or experience that left her feeling a little uncomfortable, or there was some tension involved, and it was unresolved. And so I'm wondering if you're willing to share that an experience right now, Jane?
Sure.
And then after she relates that, then I'm going to ask her some, what I'm calling empathetic guesses to help to offer some respectful understanding of her, what she's experienced. So go ahead, Jane. Just
okay.
sentences.
I ran some of this through my head, trying to figure out what would be the best here, but I'm going to go to recent events which involve living these last many months through the pandemic. And my husband and I had good friends. We thought we're good friends. And with the past political unrest and the pandemic, even though we had been told many times we are best friends, this couple has just absolutely gravitated from our lives. They don't respond to emails, cards being sent, hello, how are you? And it's left me, maybe more than my husband, thinking, what did we do? What happened? Why are we being totally dismissed? It's very uncomfortable for me. I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is where I will leave it. It has been a hole.
Yeah, yeah. So in trying to identify the emotions you're feeling, is it confusion that you're feeling, or frustration? What name might you put to your feelings?
I would say frustration, and sadness.
There's some sadness there.
Yeah.
Is the sadness connected to your your history, your connection with these people in the past that's now seems to be weakening.
I would say that is causing me to be sad.
Yeah.
And confused because I don't know where the break happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're confused or feel confused, are you longing for some clear understanding of where the relationship is?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would love to know. I would love, especially the woman, to say, okay, this is what has happened. Maybe there's something in their life that has caused this. Maybe it has nothing to do with my husband and myself, but it's the mystery of it.
Right, right, right. Okay. We'll keep it short, but I appreciate you sharing that. It sounds, yeah, it sounds a bit painful, and I'm guessing each of us, I'm inviting you now, as you reflect on what Jane brought to the table, to think of something that's happened recently in your own life where there's been some kind of uneasiness, some tension, some question, some discomfort. And so I'm looking at my watch here. I'd like us to get back into groups again. And I don't think we're going to have time for each of us to talk. So I'm hoping that at least two people can share a story one at a time. And the job for the two listeners, or however many are in your group, will be to try to do what I did. Once the person relates the story very briefly, and Jane did a wonderful job of being brief, then you ask questions that help identify what the speaker is feeling, and then underneath that, what is the need that was unmet here? What is she longing for, he longing for? You're not trying to fix it. You're not trying to do any of those non-empathetic things that we mentioned briefly. And there's no winner there's no winner to the guessing game. Your job is to just offer this respectful understanding, helping the speaker, fully know what's happened in this little experience, and to offer that kind of empathy. So,
Have 6 minutes on the clock, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
6 minutes on the clock?
Yeah, let's put, let's put 7.
Okay.
So it'll go kind of quickly. Hopefully, at least one of you is ready for a quick story that should only take a minute or so. And then please practice your guesses. You're looking for, the storyteller is the one who's saying, yes, that's right, or no, it wasn't quite that. That's not what I was feeling or needing. And then you get a chance to guess again. Are you fairly clear on what I'm asking? It's any kind of a new skill is hard to practice and a little clumsy, but I appreciate your courage. Okay, let's go for it.
Agreed. And you might end up in a group with different people because we've had to reconfigure some groups. So just go with it. We'll see you in 7 minutes.
Should I go into, should we stay in this group here?
Barbara, would you like to unmute yourself? Okay, she's gone. Kathy, Glenn, do you want to just go ahead and do what we did last time?
Okay, so I'm being invited to breakout room 6, but I'll ignore that.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll stay with Kathy and we'll do the exercise together.
Okay, well, do you know how many are in room 6?
I have Bill and Bill, or yeah, the 2 Bill B's. And I don't know, they must be requesting you because I didn't send you there.
Oh,
But I think it might be helpful since there's only 2 of them
okay.
to
All right.
just to join it, and then I'll stay with Kathy.
All right.
Or Kathy, you know what? You're really good at this. Why don't I send you to room 13? So
Whatever.
1 second, I'm gonna send you right now. So just
And-
accept that and I'll see you in a bit.
And I'll go to room 6.
Yeah, you can stay here with me or go to room 6, but I think you might be useful there.
Okay.
Okay, see you in a bit. Hey, John McDonald. I see everybody coming back. Jane, you're muted still. Why don't you unmute yourself real quick, Lee?
Can you put me back in my group number 13? I just hit the button to pull out when I just thought it was to continue.
Oh, that's, you know what? Everybody's back. So time was up anyway. I'd love to put you back, but I can't. Because everyone's back. So let's see.
Everybody has returned, Susan? Looks like.
Here you are. I didn't see you're not in the same spot. I said everybody's back except our esteemed speaker.
I got lost.
We may have lost a couple, but I think that let's proceed. We most everybody's made their way back.
All right. All right. Okay. I want to close with a couple of comments about judgment, self-judgment, and in others that get in the way of this kind of empathy and understanding that we're trying to practice as we listen for life. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think it's real tempting when something undesirable happens or unpleasant that we either blame the other person or the circumstance or blame oneself. Like either, you know, that coworker just was shirking his duty and made me look bad. That's why I didn't get my stuff in on time. Or turn it inward and we say, well, maybe I really don't belong here. You know, I just can't get anything in on time. Why is that? You know, why do I procrastinate so much? How stupid can I be? I knew what I needed to do. Well, that kind of judgment, I'm guessing, is alive in most of our lives, and that's normal. And it can be helpful if when we experience that, we immediately it signals us to ask the question, what am I feeling right now? And what am I needing? What am I valuing? What am I longing for that's not present? Or with the person we're connected with in the moment, what might this other person be feeling? And what might this other person be needing and longing for? And then making some guesses, like hopefully you just had a chance to practice. Judgment is natural, it's human, but it's disconnecting. If we judge ourselves often, we're basically putting ourselves in the corner and putting the dunce cap on, and we're not going to offer our gifts to the world. Or if we go around finding fault with other people at the drop of a hat, then we'll still probably end up in the corner because no one will be comfortable being with us. So instead, we want to move toward this deeper connection and deeper compassion. So whenever you experience some level of judgment, internally or externally, ask the question, what are the feelings and needs at this point that are important? And how can I surface those so that we can stay connected? I can stay connected with myself, or I can stay connected with this family member or a neighbor or a coworker or whomever it is that we have some uneasiness with. We have 5 minutes or less. We don't need to have an evaluation, or the kind of evaluation I'd invite from you right now for the past session that we spent together would be, what needs have been met for you spending this time together, this 90 minutes, or what needs have not been met? Another way to ask that is a kind of classic NVC question, and you heard it in the video at the beginning. What's alive in me right now? So what I'm inviting you to either name an emotion or preferably to name a need or a longing that was met in this time together or one that wasn't met. Yeah. So go ahead. We're not breaking into small groups. We've had enough of that, but unmute yourself and invite your sharing with the whole group.
I felt a little frustrated that, or disappointed, I guess, that the need to, or the situation where friendships break up is more prominent than I thought it would be. And it just kind of frustrates me because I want to make have things come to a conclusion. And I just don't know what to do about it. I mean, these people who have these friendship breakups, they try everything they do and everything they can, and it isn't resolved. And I told people that my parents had the same thing. I've never experienced that, but my parents did with some longtime friends, and they couldn't understand why this breakup had happened. And it's a little bit, I get a little bit cynical about friendships.
Yeah.
When this kind of thing can happen after 20 years of friendship, that things can just get turned off.
Right, right.
And it's kind of depressing.
Right. Well, thanks for sharing that, Tom. And yeah, there isn't a quick fix for that, and that's not the purpose of our session, but I can hear your frustration in that and some pain too.
I wanted to comment about my experience today. It turned out I was very happy to be in the small group because it was a little bit more like being at HASP in person, making an actual connection. Our group, there were only a couple of us, and so we shared a little bit about ourselves after we did our exercise and are related to the exercise. But I was really happy to make that connection. I guess after a year and a half of being alone a lot, this was actually a very positive thing for me.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. I saw Sharon starting to say something a bit earlier.
I really valued the small group time to try to put into practice, and I came away feeling hopeful because I've been in a situation where I felt very hesitant and it's been very tentative. So this practice has given me some hope that I can go in without my guard up and try to be more present. So this was a good, sometimes you know things up here. In fact, I think I know a lot of things up here that just don't get out into practice. And so this experience, the practice was good for me, was beneficial. And there's a hopefulness that I can address this one relationship concern in a different way than I've done before. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else have a comment about what needs were met or not?
For me, it was just wonderful to see different people's faces since we haven't been able to be together at HASP. Just being able to see one another's faces here in this classroom has been really wonderful and uplifting for me.
Thank you, Jane. Anyone else? Okay, well, please interrupt me if you have a word to share. Otherwise, I'll just end with a couple of comments. If you're intrigued by this whole nonviolent communication approach to communication and listening for life, the basic text is a book by Marshall Rosenberg that was referred to in the video called Nonviolent Communication. I'd encourage you to, I assume Herrick Library has it there, and most libraries might, or purchase it, but there are lots of resources online as well, so you could spend your time Googling and not spend any money. but I encourage you to take it another step forward if you would.
I have a question, which is, we're going to meet next week. Is there something we should prepare for, or will there be additional materials sent to us?
That's a good question. I mean, this 2-session class wasn't really planned together with the 2 different speakers. I happen to know Dr. Kyle Small well, who will be present next week with you. We talked briefly on the phone just to compare notes, and I told him more or less what I was going to try to do today. The only thing he mentioned to me, he was going to come with a poem from Mary Oliver. Those of you who enjoy poetry may be familiar with Mary Oliver. I don't know which poem, but if you don't know Kyle, you'll enjoy him fully. We work together at the seminary. He's in the process of moving away from Holland this summer, but I'm sure he'll come fully present and engage with all of you well. That's a long answer. Since I don't even know the poem, I can't refer you to that. So,
Well, that's a lovely poem.
I can jump in here. I think if I'm unmuted, can anybody hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Glenn. As facilitator of this class, it's been quite a road, especially as Glenn described. Ann McKnight was not able to do this, and Glenn so graciously stepped in. And I think that we would all agree that you have done a beautiful job, Glenn. Thank you so much. Thank you for your comments, uplifting him and appreciating him. And next week we do have Kyle Small, and that will be a whole new thing. So I don't even know what Kyle is planning exactly. So it will be a surprise. And thank you all. Thank you very much. I think this has been a wonderful session, and we thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for hanging in there. It sounded like it was positive for people to have that kind of more intimate interaction. And so I applaud you seriously for sticking with it, because that was not an easy Zoom class. So good job, Haspers. And thank you, Glenn, for everything.
Yeah. Well, thank you for handling the technology end and being patient with the bumps and